everyone, this is Molly Friendo, your instructor for Anthropology 103, and this week we're going to talk about social class and geographic location. When we talk about social class in the United States, we don't really talk about it. We don't really like, as Americans, to talk about class in the United States. So why is that? The poor don't typically refer to themselves as lower class. Instead, they identify with their race, ethnic group, geographic location, employer, industry, or occupational group. The wealthy don't really refer to themselves as upper class either. Instead, they consider themselves to be fortunate, responsible people. So let's unpack that a little bit. Class is not publicly debated. Class has been stripped from popular culture, and politicians don't really like to talk about class differences either. The primary exception to this is that it's acceptable to talk about the middle class. But when we talk about the middle class, references to it refer and gloss over class differences and make us assume that the middle class is the largest group. When we don't look at the wealthy and the poor, we don't view them as having a causal relationship. That is, one's not rich because the other's poor. When we draw attention to the poor, we do so in a manner that avoids talking about class structure and exploitation of the working poor. So this week there are 3 important questions to consider. First, are there significant differences in class amongst Americans? Second, if these differences exist, are they getting bigger or smaller, and do they have a significant impact on how we live? And finally, does everyone really have an equal opportunity to succeed? So there are some common myths about class in American society. First, that the U.S. is a classless society. There's a common belief that class distinctions are largely irrelevant today because in the eyes of the law, we're all equal whether we're rich or we're poor. Basic needs such as healthcare and education are provided to all, despite economic standing. Another myth is that we're essentially a middle-class nation. We believe that despite some variation in economic status, most Americans have achieved relative affluence. A third myth is that we're all getting richer. Americans, as society, we believe, are steadily moving up the economic ladder, and each generation has more than the one before it. And the final myth is that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed. We believe that success in the U.S. requires no more than hard work, sacrifice, and perseverance. We also believe that much of the success comes down to good luck. According to George Mancios, author of Myths and Realities, Class in the United States, there are enormous differences in the economic statuses of Americans. First, 60% of the American population holds less than 4% of the nation's wealth. While the real income of the top 1% of U.S. families skyrocketed by 89% between 1977 and 1995, the income of the middle declined by 13%. One economist described economic growth as a spectator sport for the majority of American families. The middle class holds a very small share of the nation's wealth, and its income, in constant dollars, is declining. The levels of inequality in the U.S. are getting higher. Census data show that the gap between the rich and the poor is the highest it's been since 1947. The percentage of households earning between $25,000 and $75,000 has fallen steadily since 1969. Finally, the middle class is shrinking in size, and the gap between the rich and the poor is getting even bigger. We assume so much of the United States is middle class because we're able to describe poverty through clothing. With the increased mass marketing of quote-unquote designer clothing, and with shifts in employment from industry to more of a service sector, it's becoming increasingly difficult to distinguish class based on appearance. For instance, let's think about this. A particular style of clothing may appear in a designer's line on the runway. Soon that style will be replicated in high-end department stores, then in department stores geared towards middle-class shoppers, and finally to bargain-focused department stores. So for instance, designer boutiques like Chanel, Marc Jacobs, etc., going to maybe Macy's or Nordstrom, then to places like JCPenney or Sears, finally to Target and stores like Walmart. Because the majority of us are able to participate in the latest fashion trends on some level, it becomes less obvious that individuals are living in poverty. There are huge differences in the physical and mental well-being of individuals based on class. Researchers have found that people in lower classes tend to have higher rates of infant mortality, disease, physical disability, mental illness, diabetes, and heart disease. They also have lower quality of treatment for illness and disease. The lower one's class standing, the higher the death rate. Class standing and life chances are largely determined at birth. Although the media hones in on rags to riches stories, The statistics on class mobility show that these leaps are extremely rare. Fewer than 1 in 5 men surpass the economic status of their fathers. Over 66% of individuals with incomes of $100,000 or more have some inherited assets. Of the 66%, 86% reported that inheritance constituted a substantial portion of their total assets. Americans do not have an equal opportunity to succeed. Inheritance laws ensure a greater likelihood of success for offspring of the wealthy. Racism and sexism compound the effects of classism in society. Considering the chances of being poor in America, for a family headed by a white male with a female, the chances are 1 in 10. White female head, 1 in 4. Hispanic male female, 1 in 4. Hispanic female head, 1 in 2. Black male female head, 1 in 4. And black female head, 1 in 2. Take a few moments to reflect on the following class profiles. As you think about them, consider what are the differences and similarities between each one, and how does each person's childhood and family opportunities impact their long-term class standing. So first we'll talk about Harold S. Browning. Harold S. Browning's father was a manufacturist and then an industrialist. His mother was a prominent social figure in the community, and he was raised primarily by a governess. For his primary education, he attended an exclusive private school on Manhattan's Upper East Side. And this was a small, well-respected primary school where teachers and administrators have a reputation for nurturing student creativity and for providing the best possible education preparation. Harold's ambition is to become president. He received supplemental tutoring in French and mathematics. And for summer camp, he attended a sleepaway camp in northern Connecticut, and the camp provided instruction in creative arts, athletics, and natural sciences. For secondary education, Harold attended a prestigious prep school in Westchester County. His classmates included the sons of ambassadors, attorneys, and well-known business leaders. After-school activities included private writing lessons. His ambition was to take over his father's business, and for graduation he received a BMW. Family activities included theater, recitals, museums, summer vacations in Europe, occasional winter trips to the Caribbean, and as members of donors to local art museums, the Brownings and their children attended private receptions and exhibit openings at the invitation of the museum director. For higher education, Harold attended an Ivy League liberal arts college in Massachusetts, majoring in economics and political science. After school, he participated in debate club, the college newspaper, and the swim team, and at that time his ambition was to become a leader in business. His first full-time job at age 23 was as assistant manager of operations at Browning Tool and Die, his family company. Afterwards, for 3 years he was the executive assistant to the president, Browning Tool and Die. Responsibilities included purchasing, personnel, and distribution networks. 4 years later, he became the advertising manager of Lackheed Manufacturing, and for 3 years after that, he was the director of marketing and sales for Comerex Incorporated. At age 38 now, he is the executive vice president of Smith Bond & Company. On a day-to-day basis, he reviews financial reports and computer printouts, dictates memos, has lunch with clients, holds conference calls, meets with his assistants, plans his business trips, and meets with his colleagues. To get to and from work, he has a limousine chauffeured by the company. His annual salary is $315,000. His ambition is to become the chief executive officer of the firm, or one like it, within the next 5 years. His present residence is the 18th floor condo on Manhattan's Upper West Side, and it includes 11 rooms, including 5 spacious bedrooms and a terrace overlooking the river. The inside of it is professionally designed and accented with elegant furnishings, valuable antiques, and expensive artwork. And the building management provides a doorman, an elevator attendant, and the family has a nanny for their children and a maid for their domestic chores. They have a second home at a farm in northwestern Connecticut, which is used for weekend retreats and horse breeding, which is his investment. And to maintain the farm and cater to their needs when they're there, the Brownings employ a part-time maid, groundskeeper, and horse breeder. Next, we'll talk about Bob Farrell. His father was a machinist and his mother a retail clerk. He was raised primarily by his mother and a babysitter. Primary education included a medium-sized public school in Queens, New York, which is characterized by large class size, outmoded physical facilities, and an educational philosophy emphasizing basic skills and student discipline. Bob also had the ambition to become president as a kid. He did not receive any supplemental tutoring. For summer camp, he attended YMCA day camp, and the emphasis was on team sports, arts, and crafts. For secondary education, he attended a large regional high school in Queens, and classmates included sons and daughters of carpenters, postal clerks, teachers, nurses, shopkeepers, mechanics, bus drivers, police officers, and salesperson. After-school activities included basketball and handball in the school park. His ambition was to make it through college, and for high school graduation he received a $500 savings bond. Family activities included gatherings around the television set, bowling, an occasional trip to the movies, and spending summer Sundays at the public beach. For higher education, Bob attended a 2-year community college with a technical orientation, and he studied electrical technology. After school, he was employed as a part-time bagger in a local supermarket. His ambition was to become an electrical engineer. Bob had his first-time job at age 19 as a service station attendant. He continued to take college classes in the evening. After college, he was a mail clerk at a large insurance firm, a manager trainee at a large retail chain. At age 38, he's an assistant sales manager at a building supply firm. On a day-to-day basis, he demonstrates products, writes up orders, handles customer complaints, and checks inventory. To get to work, he takes the city subway. His annual salary is $39,261. His ambition is to open up his own business, and he gets an additional $6,100 in commission from evening and local work as a salesman in a local men's clothing store. At present, the Farrells own their own home in a working-class neighborhood of Queens. Finally, we're going to talk about Cheryl Mitchell. Cheryl's father is a janitor and mother a waitress, and she was raised primarily by her grandmother. Her primary education was a large public school in Ocean Hill in Brownsville, Brooklyn, New York. At the school, they have the rote teaching of basic skills and emphasis on conveying the importance of good attendance, good manners, and good work habit, and the school is patrolled by security guards. She did not receive any supplemental tutoring, and she did not attend summer camp. For secondary education, Cheryl attended a large public school in Ocean Hill, Brownsville. Her classmates included the sons and daughters of hairdressers, groundskeepers, painters, dishwashers, dressmakers, and domestic servants. Her after-school activities included domestic chores, part-time employment as a babysitter, and a housekeeper. Her ambition is to become a social worker, and for a high school graduation gift, she received a corsage. Family activities included church-sponsored socials. For higher education, Cheryl attended 1 semester of community college, but needed to drop out for financial reasons. Her first full-time job was at age 17, where she worked as a counter clerk at the local bakery, and afterwards she's been a file clerk with a temporary service agency and a supermarket checker. At age 38, she's a nurse's aide at a municipal hospital. Her typical daily activities include make up hospital beds, clean out bedpans, weigh patients and assist them to the bathroom, take temperature readings, pass out and collect food trays, feed patients who need help, bathe patients, and change dressing. To get to work, she takes the city bus. Her annual salary is $14,024, and her ambition is to get out of the ghetto. Her present residence is a 3-bedroom apartment in the South Bronx, which needs painting, has poor ventilation, and is in a high-crime area. Cheryl lives with her 4-year-old son and her elderly mother in this apartment. For this week's discussion, you'll be talking about a time when you experienced the imposter complex, or the feelings of discomfort associated with acting outside of one's social complex. Interestingly, as our economy has taken a downward slide, shows like Undercover Boss, which we'll watch a clip of here, have become popular, where individuals from a higher social class take on the struggle of the so-called common working person. The stories you share can be of a time when you experienced joining a group either of a higher social class or lower social class than you, and the feelings that you went through during that experience.